Well, hello. Welcome back. Hope everybody had a wonderful Merry Christmas with their families and their loved ones. I know we really enjoyed ours down here in warm, sunny Florida. It did look like a lot of the United States was warm and nice, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the weather. Um, so anyways, yeah, let's get this thing started. First off, first spotlight today, right here, Sanibel Bible Church. It's the church that my wife and I attend. Alex runs the church, and we're very, very thankful that church is opened or welcomed us with open arms, and it's felt like home since the day we walked in. And our other friend Alex, a different Alex, invited us to the church, and we've really, really enjoyed it. And we were able to do Christmas Eve service there, and it was a huge blessing just to go celebrate before the holiday the right way and give thanks and understand the reason why we're here and the blessings. And it was an awesome, awesome service that just kicked everything off the right way and helped us celebrate the holiday the right way, at least what I felt like was the right way. So shout out to them. And if you're looking for a church and you're in like Lee County area down in Florida, definitely I would highly, highly recommend stopping on and seeing us. And I think you're going to enjoy it as well. Anyways, let's get this thing started. So one of the things I really want to talk about is I know we're getting ready to go into the new year. I'm not somebody that really believes in New Year's resolutions. You know, at one time I did, when my younger self, younger 20s. You think New Year, new me. I'm going to start doing these things. I'm going to see a transformation throughout the year. But you know, at least I never succeeded at it. I don't. I know some people do, but I think that percentage is very small. But I do think, for those of you that are striving to maybe achieve some things in 2026, have a list of things. I kind of wanted to help, even though I don't necessarily believe in the strategy of doing it at the new year. I feel like I could help maybe you sustain and have more success than what I did back in, when I was younger. So today I want to focus on setting boundaries and the importance of setting boundaries. This is a touchy subject for a few reasons. Because sometimes when you set boundaries, you cut people out that quote unquote have always been there, or they're family, whatever the case may be. So you're going to offend some people. I'm just going to just going to go ahead and throw that warning out there. You will offend people. You are going to tick them off. They're going to think of you a certain way. Um, that comes with the territory. That's something that you are going to have to be okay with going into it. Now, I talk a lot about mind, body, and spirit. Now, going into mind, body, and spirit, you have to set a foundation. And setting this foundation is setting your boundaries, because there's a group of people that are going to tear you down for it. Why would you do that? What do you think you're better than us? Do you think you're trying to be better than us? Or whatever the case may be, you get what I'm saying, you get where I'm going. So you have to have a foundation in place where you're surrounded by people that are either A, doing the same thing, or B, trying to do the same thing. So that way you're with people that understand the concept, they understand the reason why. They're going to help hold you accountable, help keep you disciplined, and help keep you motivated. And so that's very, very important. But the question is, well, how do I set my boundaries? Where would you begin to start to set your boundaries? And that's why I'm here, to try to go through, at least share it from my experience. I'm still learning as I go. I'm still setting new boundaries. And so it's not like I figured life out and I'm here to tell you everything there is to know. And no, I've learned quite a bit, enough that I feel like I could turn around and share what I've learned. But I know there's a lot more out there to learn and to gather and things like that. So, my first thing is don't fall in love with somebody's job title or position or status. And what I mean by that is, just because somebody is an executive, or, when I say executive leadership is CEO, CFO, owner, maybe you're on the board of executives or board of trustees, that's an executive position. To me, a leadership position is more like a field leadership position. So you're going to be talking about your GMs, your territory managers, your regionals, things like that. Those are field level managers. So don't fall in love with, because you finally get a relationship with an executive level person, that just because that they're an executive level, that doesn't mean they're a good person, that doesn't mean that they have good values, good morals. So don't just think, well, I'm surrounding myself with CEOs and owners, so I'm good to go. No, that's not always the case. I'll give you an example. I'm not going to name the person or the company, but there was a time. This is a real story. This is not. There's no sugar on this story. This is just what happened. I had an opportunity to take some customers to go have an outing and show that we appreciate their business. And I take them out, and we're leaving, and the CEO of the company comes up and tells them that they're an embarrassment to the company. Legitimately. Problem was, he was drunk. Not sure what else was going into it. I know he was sloppy drunk. But that's not a CEO you want to affiliate with. That CEO is a piece of crap. That's just because you're a CEO. I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole, but you get what I'm saying. So just because you're a CEO, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a good person. That doesn't mean you did good to get there. And oftentimes, when you're talking about corporate level, usually you got to step on throat, step on necks to get to the top when we're talking about corporate world. So, and it took me, that was one of my first eye openers of like, oh, we operate like this up here. And now that I mentor slash coach these types of people, I'm here to tell you, a lot of them don't have a very strong moral compass. That's just the bottom line. That's just what it boils down to. So what I'm saying is, don't just fall in love with the title because you think you're surrounding yourself with successful people. You can be successful, but you're also riding on thin ice, and it's just a matter of time before that bomb goes off and you break through the ice and you sink. So be careful on who you surround yourself with. Now, what you want to fall in love with is people's morals, people's values. Are they standing for the things that you want to stand for? Are they disciplined? Are they disciplined individuals? One of my good friends isn't the most religious person in the world, and that's fine. But you know what? He's an extremely, extremely disciplined human being, and that inspires me to stay disciplined myself. Just because he's not disciplined on the same things that I'm disciplined on, he's a very disciplined human being. He's very about his health. He's very about learning stuff. He's just missing the spirit piece, and that's okay. That's hopefully we get him there, but that's okay. It's I admire his ability to stay disciplined throughout life. Throughout being a husband and being a father, and running a business. And there's a lot of moving parts in that guy's life, and he just every day, this is what I do. Every day, this is what I do. And that's who you really want to surround yourself with. Now, let me turn back the hands of time and talk to small town people, because small town, it's way harder. Small town people are very small minded. They're not very open minded. Majority, not all, but the majority. And those of you in a smaller area know exactly what I'm talking about. They think they know it all. They think they got it figured out. And the reality is they know very little. Their experiences, typically aren't near what the experiences of somebody that's going to live in a much more populated, much more dense area where life happens all the time. You don't see it on TV, you see it in person. And so it's harder in a small town to find these people to surround yourself with. My suggestion would be to try to branch out and surround yourself with people. It's okay. There are a bunch of online groups. Use your phone and social media to your advantage. Instead of trying to be in a popularity contest where you look a certain way on social media, but you're a piece of crap behind closed doors, which is a lot of times that's really what it is. Instead of chasing that, go find people that are on the same path as you, or already on that path, or are trying to get on that path. There are multiple groups I know on Facebook, there's multiple groups that you can get into. I don't know about the other ones, so I know Facebook for sure is somewhere where you can go and just search up groups and join, and you can meet like-minded people and find somebody that's, within a drivable distance, befriend them and go from there. And that would be my recommendation, because it's going to be extremely hard. It is. Small towns are very, very tough to navigate, especially when you're trying to change. And say you're somebody like me that was just drinking all the time, not really caring, not the most responsible person, not the most organized person, just all those things. And all of a sudden you want to flip a switch and you want to be organized and you want to carry yourself a certain way and you want to be in leadership and you have dreams to be an entrepreneur that's a huge change. That's a big change. And, lucky for me, when I wanted to make that change, I was already out of a small town. I was in a more metro area. And that's really what opened my eyes to all this change. Had I probably never moved, I, I don't know that I would have made these strides, to be honest. Like, it took moving and getting out to see the world a different way. And I'm like, holy cow, okay, there's way more to this world than what I was originally taught versus, or thought, or, whatever you want to use. There was way more out there than I had anticipated. So if you're in a small town, branch out. Okay. You're going to have to find some new people, new souls, use your social media to your advantage. Second thing is when you set boundaries. So let's talk about the family aspect, because family is a big one, and especially in my generation. And I think we're going on at least, for sure, we could say 2 generations, maybe even 3. I mean, it's getting close to where we really want to, not everybody, again, I know it's not 100% of people, but I'm talking about the majority. So we'll say the majority here. We want to navigate our kids' lives for them the way that we see fit. And we try to direct and instruct and tell them what they should be doing versus what they are doing. We're about 2 or 3 generations into that kind of coaching, parenting, that style of living. And what you've seen, I see it now, is, you got kids in their 20s living with their parents, which is just asinine if you ask me. Now I know the cost of living is high, but man, I think, when I think back in my 20s, there was no way in Hades I was going to live with my parents. You know what I mean? Like, I'd have got some friends and we'd have shacked it up together and we'd have had a good old time. But it's not the kids' fault. I'd look at that as the parents. You've crippled your kids. There's way more to life, and they should be living life in their young 20s and getting all these experiences, but yet you're nesting them at home. And, that's not healthy. That's not the way life is supposed to work. It's not the way it's designed. Um, I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong to live at home with your parents, but it's wrong for your parents to think it's the greatest idea in the world for you to be living in their house when you're 25, 26, 28, whatever the case may be. Now, I know there's different circumstances. So I'm not talking to every single person living at home with their parents, but you know what I'm talking about. You get what I'm saying. So back to the family thing, that's not healthy. And not all family is healthy. And in fact, they could almost argue that a lot of family is actually unhealthy. Now, there are certain families out there that have been able to keep it together, but I see, just when I look around, I see more families that are more broken or on the brink of breaking than I do that are just healthy together. And that's sad, but I also think there's multiple factors that go into that, in my opinion. You got social media, which is a big one. People know too much about everybody else. People know too much about, I say me, I'm a terrible example of this because I have like a public profile, blah, blah, blah. But there's also a lot of things that I don't put on there. There's a lot of things that go on that nobody knows about except my family. And that's on purpose. There's a whole side of me that's kept personal and private, and it will remain that way. Now, there are certain things, certain ideas, certain thoughts, certain passions. I'll absolutely spew those out there. But there's a lot of things that happen that I won't post. I don't need to post. Because I'm not trying to be popular. I'm just trying to help other people that maybe they're struggling. Maybe they don't know how. Maybe they're trying to find their way out of a dark time, or entering a dark time and don't want to go through it. And so I'm just trying to help those types of people. And, if that rings true to somebody, it's fantastic. If I talk to myself, fantastic. Either way, I was like, well, what? I feel like it's valuable. So, but anyways, you're going to have to make a tough decision. You're going to have to cut some people out. Now, my recommendation is, if you want to tell them straight up, like, listen, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to focus on these things. And unfortunately, you're pretty negative, and I don't want to have this interaction all the time. So I'm going to cut this off for a little while, and we can revisit. If you want to have that conversation, go for it. If you feel like that conversation is going to be extremely confrontational, I would say, if it's going to be confrontational, don't feel like you have to have the conversation. Sometimes it's easier just to walk away and let them think whatever they want to think, say whatever they want to say, because that conversation is not going to go anywhere good. And that's okay. But you have to make that decision. You have to make that choice. But if you want to lay this foundation and you want to set your boundaries, you have to cut some people off. Okay. And some of these people you're going to cut off are going to be completely bamboozled and completely confused that you would ever do such a thing. And that's okay. That's normal. Okay. You ask any successful person, that is extremely normal. The last thing about setting boundaries is when you look at your friend group, you got to take a really deep look on why are you guys friends? What activities are you routinely doing? What are you talking about? Because here's the thing you need to get away from. You need to get away from gossip. You need to get away from negative energy, negative comments, and you also need to get away from negative activities, things that are going to steer you away. Because I'm going to tell you, we are flawed as human beings. You put us in a room with temptations, we're going to fail. We were designed that way. So you got to take your temptations out of the picture. Okay, whether that be drinking, alcohol, other things that we don't really talk about. You got to take that stuff out of the equation completely. And whoever is involved in getting you in those rooms or getting you in those situations, they got to go. Okay, you've got to make that executive decision. They got to go, right? Because if you want to walk a certain path, a certain way, you're not going to be able to bring those people with you. I call those people's anchors. They're anchors around your ankles. Okay, you cannot, and I have never seen it work where you take those types of people to the top with you. They're not fit to go to the top. There's an old saying, and I don't know who originally said it, so I'm not going to take credit for it. It's definitely not me, but it says, everybody wants to be a winner, but not everybody's willing to put in the work to be a winner. And that's the truth. Everybody wants to win. There is a whole group of people that aren't willing to do anything to win, though. They just want to win. They just want here you go, you're the best. But yet they don't want to do anything for it. Those are the type of people you're going to have to cut out. So we learned we're not going to go judge somebody based off of a job title or a position of power. We're going to evaluate our family and who we associate with in our family, and are they there for the right reasons? Are they encouraging? Are they building you up? Or are they crippling you? Are they tearing you down? Are they getting you in situations that you don't have any business being in? Then we learned about our friends and what kind of friends are we having? What kind of temptations are they, do they have? What kind of conversations? What's the negativity, the gossip, things like that. And the friends one, that's a big one, because I'm going to tell you right now, and I've said this before, if you sit down at a table with the people that I associate with on a daily basis, you sit down with those people and you start trying to talk about somebody else at that table, they're going to get up and leave. Okay, you will literally sit there by yourself because they have no interest in doing it. Now, if you want to mention, hey, did you see this? I've been praying for this person, or hey, did you see this? I really want to keep these people in my thoughts, whatever. Completely different ball game. But if you want to try to make fun of somebody or tear somebody down or what, they're not interested. And quite frankly, I'm not either. I could care less. I'm not in the business of tearing somebody down. It's a mean, tough world, and I don't think we need to be tearing people down. Now, we can hold people accountable, but we can do it in a way where we're not degrading somebody or making somebody feel less than. I made a good video on the snap thing, and it's like that. It's so many people want to misconstrue what people say and what people mean behind what they say, and I interpret it that way, and it's like, well, then get out of here. Like, you interpret it from your negative, small-minded view when I posted it as a up from 30,000 feet, just in general, just saying, you know what I mean? So like, there's certain things and people you got to cut out completely, and that's okay. But you have to be able to make that decision. You have to be able to make that distinction between where you want to go and how you're going to get there, and who you're going to take with you, and who's going to be able to go with you. Because it's honestly, when you become a full-fledged adult, I say full-fledged, 25 years old, your brain's got to at least be fully developed, right? That's not a guarantee. They got to earn that. And I think we lose that a lot, especially family. We lose it. We have this sense of entitlement. Well, I'm this, I'm your mom, I'm your grandma, I'm your whatever. Just examples. But they feel like they have a right to be in your life all the time because they're your family. And it's like that's not the case. You got to earn that. Once you become an adult, and even as a parent, you've got to be able to pivot, and your role changes obviously as your children grow up to be adults. Your role changes, and if you don't change that role accordingly, then yeah, you're going to be at risk of getting the axe, right? And I'm not encouraging anybody to separate from their family. What I am saying is, not all family is healthy, and you've got to be able to know when you're in one of those situations. And there are other families that are absolutely healthy, and kudos to them. But you have to make that distinction for you. But I'm going to tell you, all these New Year's resolutions, none of them are gonna really work for you unless you start laying a foundation of, okay, who am I going to have with me on this journey? And then once you get that established, because you're going to have somebody, at least one person. You only need one, just so you know. You don't need a whole group. You only need one other person. If you can find one, um, and then you can do the, okay, well, I want to do, I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to get this. I want to do that. Whatever your New Year's resolution, you do that for you. But you're going to have at least one person's full support at all times. And somebody's going to hold you accountable and shoot you straight. Um, my wife, she always, anytime we go meet somebody new, she always pre-warns them. Hey, my husband, he can kind of be, um, she says an asshole. I'll just say that. She can be an asshole. What she means by that, though, is, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not somebody that you're going to come around and tell me all these wonderful things you're doing without me looking at you and telling you you're full of it and that you're all talk. And I'm realistic. And it's just how I've always been. I'm just very realistic. I'm a very realistic person. If you don't want to put in the work, you don't want to put in the time, um, things aren't just going to happen. I just know that for a fact. I know that from experience. You've got to put your head down. You got to go to work. You got to work on some things. And but anyway, so New Year's resolutions, not my thing. Not my thing. I'm big on why even wait till Monday? Today is Monday. If I was somebody that really wanted to make a change, but you know what, I'm starting today or I'm starting tomorrow. Like, I'm not pushing it off till to a certain date or a certain month or time of year. And saying, if you're gonna do something, do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how I'm wired. Um, I'm not talking down on people that aren't wired that way. I'm just helping you guys understand why I'm not really big on New Year's resolutions, why I don't really believe in them. But for those that are, studying New Year's resolutions, there's nothing wrong with that. Just because I don't do it myself, I still I want to see as many people flourish as possible, and that's why I'm here. I just want to see as many people succeed and have the right mentality, have the right mindset, have the right group of people around them, and the last thing, there's one thing I want to touch on is, once you establish your network and you establish your circle of friends and you have your boundaries set and you have your group of people, you got to be really, really careful in who you add in there and who you allow in there. Just because you built this new group, that doesn't mean your friends of old get to enjoy your new group, because your friends of old are going to destroy it for you with your new group unless they start making some of the similar changes that you made. Like, my wife and I both are notorious. We go help a lot of people. I mentor people, things like that, and no offense to them at all, but they're not necessarily in my circle. You know what I mean? Like, when things go wrong, I don't call the people I'm mentoring for help, right? Like, that's what I mean. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you also, same thing. Like, you've got to be able to understand and place people. Like, okay, this is somebody that's looking up to me, and I'm mentoring them. Okay, well, this is somebody that I'm looking up to, and they're mentoring me. And versus, this is somebody that we're eye to eye. We see we're kind of at the same place in life. We're close. Those are three completely different relationships, and you have to understand what relationship what the relationship is. And you know, you can't treat the guy that you're looking up to like the guy that you're really, or the person that you're really close to. Okay, that's not that relationship. And it's no different than you can't the person that's looking up to you that you're mentoring, you can't treat them the same as, that's not your best friend. That's somebody that you're trying to help either professionally or personally, right? Or both, preferably both. But um, you got to understand where people are in life for you and treat each relationship accordingly and respectfully. And it takes time to figure it out. And again, I'm still learning all this stuff, so it's a thing that's an ongoing learning experience. But these things matter. These things are extremely important because there's definitely a right way to do things when it comes to this type of stuff. There's a right way and a wrong way. Okay, it's not one of those things where there's 1,000 ways to do it and blah blah blah. No, there is a right way and a wrong way on this type of stuff. Now, once you get past this stage and you're starting to become disciplined or whatever, yeah, there's 1,000 different ways, 1,000 different things you can do, blah blah blah. But to get started, you have got to have a foundation. That foundation is pretty much the same across the board. You ask anybody that's successful, anybody that's disciplined, they'll tell you the same exact thing that I'm telling you. You got to set your boundaries. That's like one of the first things you have to do is set boundaries, or you're not going to go anywhere. Unfortunately, you're just not. You're not going to be able to have the same group of people in all these different goals and have both. What's the saying? You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? You're going to have to set your boundaries. You have to cut some people out, move forward, move on, so on and so forth. So, but yeah, I really wanted to touch on that before the new year. This will be my only episode this week, obviously because Thursday is a holiday. It's the New Year's Day, first day of 2026. So I want to wish everybody a happy New Year. Be safe. Don't get too crazy out there. We'll see if I make it to midnight. I don't know. Typically, my wife and I struggle to make it to midnight. But we might be able to see midnight this year. We'll see. But I hope everybody out there enjoys themselves, enjoys time with their loved ones, their families, their friends. But just be smart, be safe. It's a holiday, and have fun, but don't do something too crazy to where you end up screwing up your whole year off of one night. So, be smart, be strategic, take care of yourself, take care of your family. God bless. Thank you, guys.